This is the Savvy Investor radio show and podcast. For help with your retirement, schedule a 15-minute phone conversation with the team at ProStatus Financial Advisors today. Just call 866-597-1040 and at thesavvyinvestorradio.com.
Welcome back to the Savvy Investor Radio Show and podcast with the team at ProStatus Financial. Mike Canet, Ryan Herbert, and I am Randy Cook as we sit down and talk about some of the issues of retirement. And, you know, when we look at the market right now, I mean, this is an interesting time that we're going through right now. If you go back 10 years, Mike, to 2016, the Dow was at 17,600. Now, the Dow's like 46,000. Okay, so we have gone up 160% in the last 10 years. We should all be throwing confetti and feeling pretty happy about that. But if you ask somebody right now, how you doing in the market? They'll go, oh, man, I've lost 5%. I lost 6%. That's their mindset, is all they can see is the losses. So lots of questions here. First of all, are we just being greedy? Should we have a bigger view of this, that we've done so well the last few years and this is just a momentary blip? Or should that grousing about losing money say something about us inside?
So I think it's a double-edged sword, right? Because on one hand, the phase one fiduciary, the guy who says, look at how we did over the last 10 years. Yeah, he's going to boast about 160% return over a 10-year cumulative period. And, I don't know what that works out to be. It's not 16% per year, but whatever that works out to be, it's been a nice return. Yeah, I get that. But a phase two fiduciary looks at it and says, well, over the last 25 years, if you go from 2000 to today, the market, including dividends, is probably closer to 7.5%, maybe 8%, but somewhere in that neighborhood. So that's a huge difference, right? I mean, a phenomenal difference. And so really, it's what phase of life are you in? If you're 20, 30, 40, 50 years old and 10 years it doesn't matter, then yeah, you should be ecstatic, because the fact is, if you don't need this money for another 10 to 15 years, yeah, it's been a great 10 to 15 year period. But if you're actually getting into retirement, or you're actually using the money as a phase two fiduciary, we look at things a little bit different. And yes, it's been a great 10 years, but I need my money today, and I never know when the market is going to rebound, right? In 2023, when the markets were down, I don't know, 15, 20, 30%, depending on where you were, we did not know at the end of 23 whether the market was going to be a V shape and recover pretty quickly, whether it was going to be a W shape, or heck, the market could have been 2000 to 2013, where you made zero money over that 14-year period. And again, if you're a phase one of life where you just grow, and you could take risk, who cares about that market fluctuations? But there comes a time when all of a sudden those ups and downs in the market actually matter, right? You do not want, and this has to do with the not only the time value of money, but the sequence of returns, right? We've probably heard that on radio shows, on podcasts before, the sequence of returns of when you're taking money out of your investments. Well, if you have 10 to 15 years before you need your money, then who cares about the iterations, right? Nobody cares about, the oil fluctuation prices and, are we going to nuke Iran? Is Iran going to go blow up Saudi Arabia? Is Russia going to take over Ukraine? What's happening? All that geopolitical stuff gets smoothed out over time, and that makes perfect sense. But for somebody who needs a paycheck tomorrow, somebody relying on the stock market tomorrow for their honey-do list, their round-do list, their bucket list, you know what? If you have a sound financial plan in place, then you can withstand the ups and downs of the market. If you've secured your income and you've transferred the risk of running out of money, yeah, you can withstand the ups and downs of the market. And who cares if there's a correction, right? We know on average the market drops about 20% every 3 years, on average. We know on average the market drops 40% every 7 years, on average. So if you have a sound plan where you have a safe bucket of money, and I'm doing air quotes, but a safe bucket of money where if the market crashes, you can go to this bucket of money. And what we mean by safe is truly safe, because, 2023, people were told bonds were safe, and bonds were down 10, 15%, depending on what you owned.
Yeah, and it's really just the everything we always talk about with clients is making sure that you have your income as safe and secure as possible. Because once we do that, right, risk at that point, it's not that it doesn't matter, your risk profile, but you can absorb the ups and downs of the markets. One of the things that people always ask about is, how much risk are we going to take on? And my answer is, well, how much risk do you want to take on. Because if I know every single month that you need $5,000 a month, and every single month you have $5,000 coming in, no matter what happens, whether it's from a pension, Social Security, or an annuity. Once I know that your income need is secure, well, if you want to be super aggressive and swing for the fences and put 100% of your money in the market, we can do that. Because if you want to see 15, 18, 20% returns when the stock market goes up, you can do that. But if you don't want to see any downside and you're just fine earning 3, 4, 5%, well, then we're going to take a very, very conservative approach, because, you take on as much risk as you need to take to accomplish your goals. And the goal for everybody should be to never outlive your money in retirement, to not have to worry about your money in retirement. If that's the goal, we accomplish that goal, well, then everything else, all the other money that we're not using for income, that can be as risky as you want it to be or as conservative as you want it to be. Because at the end of the day, stock market goes up 20% and all your money's in the market, you're not going out and spending 20% more money. Mm-hmm. Conservative, on the flip side to it, the stock market drops 20% and you're all the way in the market and you've lost 20%. Well, I don't have to go out and spend less money because I've taken those steps to make sure I have that income coming in every single month, regardless of what's going on in the stock market.
And that percentage, that's also one of those kind of little things that we need to pay attention to, because when we hear a percentage, unless we translate that percentage into an actual dollar amount, whenever we're talking to people, they're always comfortable losing 5, 10, 15, 20%. They're always in their mind's eye, that's okay, because I've seen that happen before. But when you tell them 20% is $200,000, or you tell them 20% is $400,000, or whatever it happens to be, all of a sudden, when it's a physical number, when it's an actual number, that's a game changer for some people, right? And we had clients, this was a long time ago. I just love telling the story. They came in, they had about $8 million, federal employees, incredible pensions. They were under the old CSRS system. So they had great pensions. Basically they each had about 80% of their pre-retirement income covered by pensions. They had saved $8 million in the TSP. So fantastic job there. They had long-term care. So their home was paid. They had done a remarkable job. And she came in and she was so upset that her accounts kept going up and down. In any given week, she was losing, $100,000. It was driving her crazy. And this was back in 2008. So it was way back in the heyday. But, her accounts were down, over almost $3 million. And they would go up and down and up and down and up and down. And so she wanted a solution to avoid these problems. And I said, okay, so is the goal to make sure we leave them $8 million, or is the goal to leave $8 million adjusted for inflation? And she said, I want to make sure they have $8 million. So that's great. Ryan and I and the team, we put together a portfolio that had zero risk in it. Now, when I say zero risk, there was interest rate risk, because we were buying bank CDs, we were buying treasuries, we were buying fixed annuities, but everything was interest rate based, and everything had a specific time period. So while they might go up and down in value over the holding period, at the end of the time period, if you buy a CD at 5%, the value of the CD might go up and down based upon selling it that day. But at the end of the 1 year period or 5 year periods, whatever your CD term is, you're going to get your CD, you're going to get your money back plus the interest that you earned. Well, that's what we did for her. And I thought she was going to have a heart attack. She was so angry with us. I mean, I joke around. If she could have spit on me, she probably would have. She was so mad that I had no equities in her portfolio. And I was like, well, why do we need equity? And her position was, well, all the talking heads, all the noise, I see commercials. I listen to radio, not podcasts, obviously, but I see commercials, advertisement everywhere talks about stock market. I go to dinner seminars and they tell me how to put my money in the stock market. And Ryan and I, our position is, if you don't need stock market returns, why would you take stock market risk? And if you think you can withstand a 20% drop in the market, but every time a drop in the market happens to be 20% and you get nervous, well, then maybe you shouldn't risk 20% drops. Maybe your portfolio should not be at a 20% drop opportunity, right? Because that's what you've done. You set yourself up to it, which is Ryan and I said, first thing you should do is, one, have a true financial plan. Have a plan in place that says, here's where my income's going to come from. Look, if you don't want to transfer the risk and you don't want to buy an annuity, that's fine. You should understand your options. But if you're not going to buy an annuity to transfer the risk, fine. How much money do you need to have in equities to make sure that if you're taking money out during the first 3 years of retirement and the market's dropping during the first 3 years, like it did in 2000, 2001, and 2002, you're not going to run out of money? That's a problem. You need to understand how all those things work. You need to understand the tax implications. You need to understand the estate planning, the long-term care, the risk. You need to understand all the pieces of a puzzle, and it all starts by really having a financial plan, which is why Ryan and I always insist when you come into our office, we don't do a transaction. We don't do transactional relationships. You have to have a financial plan because that's the only way you can make a sound decision. We talked earlier about the details and coaches, saying, if we could have executed better, this wouldn't have happened or that wouldn't have happened. This is the exact same thing. Put together a plan, execute the plan, and then the risk is immaterial. That's what it's all about.
One of the things about times like this of market volatility is if you were to come into ProStatus Financial and start building a retirement plan, they would say, okay, let's test your retirement. What have you done and what happens if the market does this or that? Well, this time that we're going through right now is a little bit of a test for you. How do you feel about losing money? And we haven't had, 20% down, 15, 40% down. We've had 5 to 10% down. How do you feel about that? Because this says a lot about you in retirement. Let's have that conversation. Give the guys a call. Give a look at the website. Here it is, thesavvyinvestorradio.com. Check that out. You'll have all of the links right there. You'll see the buttons that says schedule a call. You'll see the buttons of tax analysis. All that's right there on the website. Tool around and find out more. If it's time to talk about your retirement, give the team at ProStatus a call. Thesavvyinvestorradio.com. Guys, that is all the time that we have on the show for today. Ryan, I'll give you the last word on this one.
This is Ryan Herbert. Thank you so much for listening to the Savvy Investor Radio Show and podcast.
And this is Mike Canet. We'll see you, the Savvy Investor, next week.
Advisory services offered through ProStatus Financial Advisors Group, a registered investment advisor. Insurance licensed in Maryland. ProStatus Financial Advisors Group, LLC is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if ProStatus Financial Advisors Group is licensed in your state, please call 410-863-1040. ProStatus Group, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through representatives of ProStatus Financial Advisors Group.